Welcome to how to build your at-home hydroponic garden. So this is for beginners, intermediates, people who are wanting to grow their own food and just want to know all the parts they need and how much it costs, blah blah blah. So what we're looking at is about $100 to $150 depending on how big you want this, and you should be able to grow all kinds of stuff. And you should be able to get all of the components at either Home Depot, Lowe's, you'll need to get some of the parts from a greenhouse store or a hydroponic growing store. So let's begin. Okay, so this is the system. Obviously it's homemade, and some of the components are less than stellar, but once you have the essential components, it's fine. You know, you can switch out the bad stuff later on and get, blah blah blah. So let's start with how it works. In that container is our nutrient reservoir. And that container should be much bigger, as most of the reservoir is actively being held in these things, because these together hold about 10 gallons and that holds about 3 gallons. So your reservoir should be bigger, and eventually there will be less water in these as the water level goes down. But what happens is there's a black tube right there, comes right out the top of that container, just through a little hole that I drilled. There's a submersible aquarium pump that you can buy. I bought like the littlest one and it works just fine. And what happens is it keeps pumping water through that black tube, makes a T-split right there, and each end is capped off, and then through each T half we have these two connectors, and that just focuses that water, and it helps the reduction in size of the diameter of the tube make sure that each water section is getting like all of the pressure that it needs. So you can see there that water, well, you can kind of see there that water coming out. There we go. So that is continually giving water to each sleeve. And then at the other end, they are held above the actual reservoir, and then there is a PVC tube that regulates how high the water can go before it goes back down into that reservoir. So it's happening at a slower rate than can really be seen, but the water level is just at the tip of that tube, just the tip, and then it drops straight back down into the reservoir through more holes that I drilled in the top of that container. And then for that pump, that's where it comes out of that tube. And then I was just using that to put in the nutrients. And then so the way this is working is that it keeps the water nutrient solution moving, keeps the plants hydrated, keeps them nutritized, and as the plants grow, their roots will grow longer. You move that PVC piece down lower so the water level gets shorter, and then eventually the root systems, you just have basically a trickle going down, and then the root systems take care of themselves. So this, I got 7 pots in 4, so there's 28 plant positions here, and you could do less. You could probably do 6 if you were growing something bigger, like all tomatoes. If you were doing all tomatoes, you'd probably want something bigger. But then again, as I said, I can move these apart. Well, maybe I didn't say that yet, but I can move these apart so that I can grow bigger plants here and have them give more space, and then have little plants over there, like little herbs or something. But alright, so let's begin how to construct it. To make this beast, you need to make a couple trips to Home Depot, I'm pretty sure, and you're going to need to make at least 1 trip to the hydro store. So the hydro store sells components that are basically just made for hydroponics, so you can't buy them at a regular store, such as the connectors for these tubes, these little connectors. Those are a special item, and the tubes themselves are a special kind of tube that aren't found in most plumbing outlets. So, and the pots, the net pots, those are special. Okay, so you start with the shafts, the white ones. Those are actually fence post, vinyl fence post, and you want vinyl fence post that doesn't have the interior insulation. I've seen a lot that have like a layer of composite wood or something. Don't get that. You just want straight up vinyl. So it should be like, you know, 1/8 of an inch thick all the way around or whatever. And then you're gonna need to find someone who has a 3-inch hole saw, which is like the toothed circle that you put on the end of a drill, and you just need to drill all those holes. Try and space them out, you know, evenly. I think we did a really good job with that. And then those 3-inch pots should fit perfectly in that hole. 3-inch is a pretty decent, you know, like coverall kind of size, because the base of the plant doesn't really matter so much. It's always going to be much smaller than the pot, so you can grow a variety of sizes of things in 3-inch pots and be perfectly fine. So then after you drill those holes, you're going to want to drill one more hole in each one that you can't actually see. Actually, 2 holes rather. You're going to want to drill like a 1/4 of an inch hole there, I think it is, or whatever. You can experiment in like a little piece of wood and see what kind, you know, what hole works best for that little tubing. But then on this end, you need to drill a hole that goes that size, the proper size for that. I didn't measure the hole size for that, but it's a little bigger than 3/4, I think. That little black rubber piece that you get at the hydroponics store, that's a 3/4 inch grommet. So it has like 2 lips on it, and it just keeps the water out. Well, you know, keeps it watertight, or it's supposed to anyway. So you want to drill those little end holes, and you want to drill these end holes on the bottom where those PVCs are before you put the caps on, otherwise you're going to have a mess. So after you drill all your holes and you have these empty, you know, these open sleeves with all these holes in them, wash them out. Get rid of all that crap from all the drilling process, and then let them dry really good, and wash all of your end caps, just because they normally come really dirty, like disgusting. So go ahead and just like give everything a good wash, and then let it dry for a few hours. I am the most impatient person in the world when it comes to this stuff, and it killed me to make this because I had to wait for a lot of these steps. So then you're going to want to have someone just like hold those caps on while you caulk. Actually, what I did, there's a little insert inside one of these things. You'll see it when you buy it. There's like a little grip insert and then the cap. So what I did was I used PVC glue, and I glued that insert like really good in its place. And then I did caulking around that edge, put the cap on, did another round of caulking, and then let it dry. Unfortunately, I had a lot of holes in my first layers of caulking, so be aware that there's going to be holes. But you just want to get like, as you know, just seal that up completely, and it's kind of tough, or harder than you think. Anyway, it's probably easy for people who do it all the time, but you know, for me it was an undue challenge. So, so that would be your next step, to put those caps on, and then you just let them dry for a few hours. I would say give them like 5 hours just to be on the safe side, and then take them outside and do a test. You can take them out one by one and just like have your little PVCs. Like you need to, you know, buy a 1/2 inch PVC or whatever fits into that grommet. Do testing. Test as much of this as you can while, you know, like before you do anything that you can't undo. So like when you go to the store, take the grommet with you, test it on the PVC, make sure it fits, then, you know, buy your PVC. But then you cut the PVC into like 6-inch lengths, so you have a little underhang and you can have the water be as high as you want. That's still probably overkill. You could probably do like 4-inch lengths. But then when you're testing it for waterproof, go ahead and like set it up on like 2 things, like, you know, if you have like little mini sawhorses or something, or, you know, this container itself works fine. So you set it up, put your PVC in with the grommet. You'll notice that it can be really firm. You can use rubbing alcohol to get it in there initially, but once the water starts kind of running through the system, it becomes much easier to move up and down. So you do a waterproof test, and then you'll find any leaks, make note, drain it, let it dry, recaulk, and then you can retest. But you definitely don't want a leak, especially if you're like in an apartment or something. So yeah, because this is meant to be indoors or outdoors, you know, but I'm using it indoors, so it definitely had to be like waterproof. Anyway, so once you have the caps on, you can assemble the rest of it, and it's pretty straightforward. You just buy, I'd say a good 8 feet of the black snake tubing, that 1/2-inch stuff, and then you link it to a simple T, and they'll sell you one of these 1/2-inch connecting T's, and you just force those over that, and they're good to go. And then a regular plumbing store should have these end caps that you can just squish in there and they'll stay put. And then I think I said before how you puncture into the black tubing to get those connectors in there. Just use a nail or an awl or something that's sharp and just like poke a simple hole into one side, and then go ahead and force one of those ends in. Be a little bit careful as like to the angle that you're doing it, because I ended up bending one of them off or something, like bending one of the attachments to the connectors. But if you go straight in, they're usually just like, you know, pop in. It takes some force, but you can do it. And then you just feed each of those little tubes into the hole like you saw. Keep it above the water level so that you can tell if it's working. And then you basically just fire up your pump, goes through the water, la-di-da. You have your PVC set high or low as you want, and then you're off and running. As far as the plants are concerned, I would usually start them, people start them in what are called cloners, but cloners take a lot of, you know, upkeep and stuff. I just started them in like a seed bed. Like go to Lowe's or Home Depot. They have these starter seed beds, like $5, like 100 or 50 cells or something. You just fill it with dirt. I mean, you put your seeds in there, and then they grow till they're about this big. I started this one as a seed. This is an heirloom tomato. So you just, you know, get them going, and then you gently take them out of the dirt. You rinse away all the actual dirt from the root system, so you have this like little white root system, and then you just kind of put it in the pot with a couple of those balls in there, and then you kind of just fill around the plant, and just make sure that the root is somehow in contact with water. You can watch other videos as to how to better, like, you know, adjust your water and such, but essentially that's how you do it. And then also, while you're at the hydro store, you're going to want to pick a growth medium and buy some. Sorry. This is Hydroton. I'm putting my faith in this. This is the first one I've tried, but it's essentially clay pellets. They're inert. Wash them before you use them. Go outside with a colander and a hose and just go through the whole thing. And then, you know, set it out for a couple days, let it dry, but definitely wash them, because they're covered in like the clay dust, and that will crap up your filter. So on your pump. So when you have it all put together, you can grow almost any kind of plant. Strawberries tend to work really well in hydroponic. Peppers work really well. Tomatoes work really well. And I haven't seen success with like big things that take up a lot of water, like melons or squash or that kind of thing. But I don't see why they wouldn't. They would just drink a lot of water. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please just comment or, you know, message me or whatever, and I'll try and help you out. All right.